What is up guys, Nintendavy here. The 3DS launched in North America in March of 2011, which means the handheld has almost been out for 7 years. The 3DS came out before the Wii U was even announced, and over a year and a half before it was released. So the 3DS has been out for quite a long time now. And even though the system has been very successful over the years, I believe that it is time for the 3DS to die. No one can say that the 3DS isn't slowing down. Sales have stayed decent after the Switch came out, but the amount of games coming to the system and the interest in it are very low. There are only 11 upcoming games for the system right now, and most of them are games nobody's ever heard of. 3 of those 11 games are Nintendo games, and a new version of the system, the new 2DS XL, was released in June of 2017. Clearly, the 3DS is still a big part of Nintendo's plans, and that isn't a good thing. Why is continuing support for the 3DS a bad thing? Because of the Switch. If Nintendo continues to make 3DS games and 3DS versions, that'll compete with the Switch. Some people would argue that the 3DS is a cheaper alternative and only a handheld, while the Switch is really a home console that you can take on the go. The problem with this argument is that I've seen a lot of people with the 3DS and Switch, and they are both for people who want to play the new Nintendo games. The same people who would buy a 3DS would be willing to buy a Switch, and the difference in price only makes more people want to buy a 3DS, which will only make Nintendo less money in the long run than if people bought a Switch. Also, the 3DS started out at $250 as its original price, and now you can buy a version for $80. So the Switch will probably also get cheaper during its lifespan. Hopefully they don't have as many confusing names and versions as the 3DS though, because that got a little out of hand. For the Switch is mainly a home console point, less than 20% of people play almost exclusively home console, while 30% play almost exclusively handheld. The marketing of the Switch is as a home console, but for most people it functions as their handheld too. So in that way, it does compete with the 3DS. Sure, the Switch is selling just fine now, but it could be selling even better if not for the 3DS. Even if the Switch and 3DS aren't competing with each other for sales, they are definitely competing for resources. The designing and production of the new 2DS XL probably took a lot of development, time, and money away from the Switch, and making that better. And the new games Nintendo continues to announce and release on 3DS are games that could have come to the Switch. That's bad for people who want to play these games but don't want to go back to the 3DS, and it's bad for Nintendo in the long run. If someone sees one of these new games and decides to buy a 3DS, they probably won't buy too much on the 3DS because there aren't many games coming out for it anymore. But if the game was on the Switch and someone wanted to buy it, they'd be a potential customer for every game to come out over the next 5 years or so. The 3DS has had a long life and has had some great games, but I think it's time for the system to finally retire. I don't think Nintendo should make any new versions of this console, or even make any new games for it. If it still sells and people still want to make games for it, and for all the people who own it, I think that's fine, but I don't think Nintendo should make any more 3DS games. All the time, money, development, advertisements would all be better spent going towards the Switch, as a long-term investment and to make sure the Switch sells the best that it can. It's time to say goodbye to the 3DS. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. What do you feel Nintendo should do with the 3DS? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, I'm out.